This is a quick video to show off a new plugin called Dehancer. Dehancer is a unique and powerful tool that offers film-like controls over your image. It can emulate film stock, add film grain, apply old-school film coloring techniques, and add physical film characteristics. If you've used Filmconvert Nitrate, then you have some idea of what Dehancer can do. However, Dehancer's suite of tools go well beyond what Filmconvert can do. Full disclosure, this video isn't sponsored, but the people at Dehancer did offer me a license if I made a video like this, and they also offered a 10% off code, so keep an eye in the description for that. No promises though. If you mosey on over to dehancer.com, you can learn more about all of its tools. You can see here's a complete list. They have some educational videos, and they also have a number of very in-depth articles on how their software works. A lot of the stuff goes well above my head. They obviously have a lot of experience going back to the film days because they talk an awful lot about old film coloring techniques, and they went through some pretty crazy in-depth processes to emulate the film and film techniques. So give this a read if you're interested. It's pretty interesting stuff. This is designed to work with DaVinci Resolve 15 and up. Unfortunately, it only runs on Mac OS at this time, and it's designed to work with metal GPUs. I'm going to use this clip of my boy Spike Spiegel here to show off the plugin. I'll list all of the cosplayers down below in the description. So this is just a shot of him looking really cool, and it's very flat. This is a log profile from my Zcam E2 F6. It's in Z-Log 2. So I'm going to jump right over to the color page, and let me just throw on the Dehancer and see what it can do to this without me doing any other work on it, because it does have a number of color adjustment features. I think I can get away with it. So right away it has some of the tools already turned on, like film and the film grain, and you can see we're already getting a pretty interesting look. I mean, this is like vintage retro right out of the box. If you're getting kind of bored of your color grading, like it's kind of looking all the same, I get into this rut sometimes. This thing is going to just kind of add spice to your project. That's already a pretty cool look, but I'm going to undo some of these, and then we're going to go in and play with them. So I can see there's expand, there's film, print, and the grain is right here. All right, so let's start at the top. Input, this is going to say, is it Rec 709 coming in? Is there HDR? Are you working in ACES color space? You can also choose cameras. They don't have Zcam in this list, so I'm just going to stick with Rec 709, even though it's not actually Rec 709. It's very flat. It needs to be brought into a Rec 709 space with some work. But we can do that here, so let's play around with it. Turn this on. I can push and pull my black points here and get some pretty dramatic results with just 2 sliders. I like the print one here. This tonal contrast is really impressive. It sounds like it's contrast, but you'll see here if I just throw on another node, and let me undo that tonal contrast. And I've used DaVinci Resolve's built-in contrast slider. It's not quite the same thing. Resolve does give you a pivot so you can adjust how it operates, but let me go back to Dehancer, and you can see that this one, I don't know, I like what it does. It's a little different than Resolve's contrast slider. I think this color density jumps the color up a little bit more. Just some different kinds of tools. Again, this is emulating how it used to be in the film days when you'd work on printing. So they call it print here. The color head is really cool. It gives you these controls that seem kind of like color, temperature, and tint, except they work differently. This first slider slides between yellow and blue. I gotta turn it on. There we go. And you can see it's pretty powerful. So one thing I like about the plugin is you can crank these things and get some really extreme results. They're not holding back. So I can immediately shift the color. Say I wanted it a little warmer like this, but then I think, well, I don't know, maybe it's got a little too much green. Then I can take the next slider and move away from green. And then maybe I go, that's a little too much red, so I go towards cyan, and you go through this process of balancing out the image the way you want. This is kind of cool. I am kind of going for like a vintage retro feel, kind of like Cowboy Bebop has. The film grain is pretty cool. A lot of different controls here, so you can affect the size of the grain. When you really crank it here, you can just see how it's getting pretty wild. If I make this, I'll get rid of my clips here, make this a little bit bigger. You can really just go crazy. You can adjust how much grain is in the shadows versus the highlights and midtones. But let me turn that back off and come up here to the film. Now this is going to emulate these different film stocks. when you first install this plugin, you'll have to click a button here to download and install these film profiles. And there's quite a few here. And again, you get some really interesting results just by flipping through these. This one's kind of more monochrome. Up here you've got some of the famous Kodak film stocks, Kodak Gold, Kodachrome. Here's some Portra like Portra 400. Some Fuji stock. And if you hit this auto expand, you can see it's going to really jump the contrast up. So again, you have a lot of different controls here to affect your image. Well, let's see if I can find one that's going to fit this. Some Eterna. That's a really kind of faded look. Let me hit that expand. Now it's super crushed. And this one looks really cool. Now I play with these effects in the opening of my video. The halation adds this kind of this red effect, this red glow around contrasty areas. It's something that you used to get in film, apparently. I'll have to take their word for it because I haven't shot anything on film. Gotta turn it on. I'm not sure if it's gonna even show on this one because there's not a lot of highlight areas in this to really show it off. If you crank it, that's when you can really see it. See around his jacket right here. It's kind of an interesting effect. I don't think I want to use it in this one. Same with bloom. This is going to add kind of a white glow around mostly highlights. You'll start to see it in these highlights here. If I pump the diffusion, there we can start to see if I toggle that on and off. That's actually kind of cool. And then the vignette gives you all kinds of control. Let me adjust this so you can really see what it's doing here. So if I do this and turn the feather way down, you can actually see, boom, it's a circle. And this is the best way to tell what it's doing. If I feather that, you can see how it starts to get really, really soft. I'm gonna keep it dark so you can see where it's at. If I grow the size, then you can see how it widens out. But if I keep feathering, now it's vignetting, but it's less noticeable. It doesn't jump out as much, so that's kind of cool. You can see how dramatic that is. And of course, if I bring their exposure, so it's doing the vignette, just really subtle. A lot of nice control there. Now the film breath and gate weave, these emulate the physical film moving across, say, like a projector. It gives you kind of this shake. Let me just crank these up. I'm going to crank these sliders here. See, that looks like the light level is changing, like the film, as it goes past the bulb, the lamp, it's changing in brightness. And then if I turn on the gate weave, it's going to make it look like it's moving around. It's going to kind of bounce that image around like the film is kind of bouncing around loosely in the gate. Again, pretty cool effect. They do give you also a false color. Now I know Resolve just added this, but this one looks pretty good. They have a nice big scale. And also you can generate LUTs. For some reason mine is grayed out. I haven't checked with the manufacturer on that yet, but it is a nice feature. Of course, with Resolve, you can also right click on a thumbnail here and generate a LUT right here. Although I don't think you're going to get anything like gate weave or film breath because it's not going to be able to emulate that kind of movement in a LUT. It's going to emulate the color and the illuminance, but not like the physical moving effects, I don't believe. Same with film grain. I have a hard time believing it could do film grain on a LUT. But anyway, lots and lots of controls here. Without having spent too much time manipulating our image, I'll play back my footage here. We can see we have a pretty cool look here, all kinds of vintage effects going on, film gate weave, and with just a couple sliders. It didn't take much work to get this kind of dramatic effect. If you're interested, you can download this plugin and it'll have just a watermark on your image, but you can use it for free. If you want to buy the entire suite, it's $349. But they also sell individual tools for less. So if you're interested in just a particular tool like the film grade, you'll see that's $39. And also remember to check the description. I'm going to try to get a 10% off code that you can use to save some money on this. So if you're interested, check it out at Dehancer.com. Thanks for joining me on this video, and I'll see you in the next one.